Good morning. We're going to go ahead and get started. So if folks would like to come congregate in here, we have lovely chairs available. I know they're in front, and that's always intimidating. No one wants to sit at the front of the class, but they're chairs. They're nice folding chairs, and they're a place to rest your bottom. Welcome to Bainbridge Community UCC. I'm Pastor Brian Sachs. We have networked together with several other groups, federated churches, social justice advocacy ministry, wherever you are. Make noise. Barry, make noise. Barry's not paying attention. Okay. Community Chesterland UCC. Also, Soji Geauga is here as well and has been working with us to get the word out about these legislative bills that are terrible for Ohio, that will harm Ohio's children, that will harm Ohio's prospects for the future, that hurts Ohio's image as anything but a welcoming place. And I grew up in the Buckeye State. I always thought it was a welcoming place, that most Ohioans want to be welcoming to all people, and that a minority that's full of bitterness should not be able to push this kind of crap through the legislature. So, again, thank you for coming. Thank you for joining us online. And I want to welcome up Lisa from Antionety for Ohio Education, a statewide coalition that has been hard at work on stopping this nonsense.
I'm so grateful that a minister already said the word crap, so I can just jump right in with my true self, although I'm a lot shorter. Hang on a sec. I could try to tippy-toe it, but I don't think that'll work very well. Righty-tighty. There you go. So thank you for having us here. Thank you for doing this. If you were involved in community organizing, you may know this saying, and that's that the people in the room are the right people in the room. And so whether there's three of us and I think Jesus might have said something like that too, wherever two or more of you. Yes, exactly. So organizers might have swiped that from somewhere else. But this idea that whoever gathers is the right people to be gathering. We have power, we have voice, and we're here today also to build knowledge. And because you've already said crap, I can say that it has been a pretty shitty and sorry if we're online. Sorry, young humans. A pretty shitty week in fighting for equity and fighting for justice in Ohio. And at the same time, it has been a week of gathering, of organizing, of light and love and hope in the face of that hatred. And I want to make sure that that folks who you don't have to write anything down, but I do hope that at the end of this, you'll think about following Antionety for Ohio Education, signing up for our mailing list, because every Tuesday we send an update out, and we really want to make sure that you know better so you can do better. And the pace of the hate and harm coming from three places, from the legislature, from the State Board of Ed, and from local school boards, is pretty fast, and it's pretty hard to stay on top of it. In fact, it can almost feel paralyzing. And I'm so grateful that you've organized this so that we're going to hear from young people. I spent most of my Tuesday listening to young people who were speaking out at the State Board of Education against Brendan Shea's resolution filled with hate and harm against LGBTQ kids and their families and the people who love them. But frankly, that hate and harm is also directed right at me, a mom who is straight and the parent of straight kids. But when my kids see that, they are also harmed, right? So this isn't just like, oh, if only people who were queer or black would stand up, if only people who didn't speak English would stand up, if only, kids, families with grandparents raising kids would stand up. This is really about each one of us recognizing that when hate and harm happens to others, it happens to each of us. I think that might be in the Bible too, but I'm not going to try and pull up that quote, right? So I'm here with this ugly update, but I really want to make sure that in knowing better, as Maya Angelou says, we can do better. So we've got to sort of know these updates so we can take action. And there's folks here that are like, register to vote, and folks here that are like, provide financial and emotional support to folks who are on the firing lines of the hate and harm. And then there's info from Honesty for Ohio Ed, ways to get involved and engaged. And then there's young people who are going to tell us their stories. So we're going to leave here knowing both how to know and do better. And that is a true gift. So let's hear an amen. Amen, right? Knowing and doing better. So I'm going to begin and end my comments the same way, and that's by asking you to be a hyper-informed voter and by encouraging others around you to be informed voters. I know this seems obvious, but I want you to get with some 18-year-olds. I want you to get with a neighbor who's homebound. I want you to get with a new mom who's really busy, and I want you to have a conversation with those folks of support and care. Do they know when and how to register? Do they know the multiple ways that you can vote in Ohio? Have a conversation with them about what you need and want for our schools, what your hopes and dreams are, and help make other people's voting lives possible. I'm not really worried about any of you voting, but what I really want to encourage us to do is find other folks who might have barriers, invisible barriers or other barriers to voting, and get them out there. Tuesday, October 11th, that's a big day. It's the last day to register to vote. And, there's all kinds of rules, so I'm so thrilled. Go see the voting, folks, to make sure wait, do you have to be 18 by October 11th? Or no, you have to be 18 by the day we vote, which is November 8th here in Ohio. I just want to make sure that I'm really explicit and don't just ask you to imply that you have to be an informed voter. Lean in and model what it means to be an informed voter for others too. That's important work. You can do this by being involved in organizations. All of us here, I'm so grateful for the coalition partners in Honesty that help me have accurate, timely information. And I'm here representing Honesty for Ohio Education. And the very first thing when you go to our website, it says join our mailing list, and I hope you'll do that. We founded this organization last summer. I used to say I'm just a mom, but I'm a mom. I'm a mom who thinks that schools should be excellent places for every kid. And that's what many of our other co-founders are. Some of us might be educators involved in politics. Others of us are involved in the League of Women Voters. But really, we're human beings that believe hate and harm don't belong in our schools. House Bill 322 and 327 that were filed over a year ago now would prevent the teaching of divisive topics in our schools. And to me and to many others, we think it's important to talk about divisive topics in our schools. What happened to Jewish people during the Holocaust? What happened in America during the Japanese internment? Why didn't LGBTQ people have the same rights to marry each other? I also want our schools to talk about upstanders and about resistors and about everyday people like each of you who decided to say, hey, injustice isn't okay for me. And I want to be clear that there are many people who are worried about honesty in our classrooms and in our communities. And then there are folks who aren't really worried about honesty. They're worried about equity. They don't want democracy of voice. Equity for Black students, for queer students, for undocumented students, for Asian American students. It's hard to juggle all of that hate and harm coming our way when we look at what's happening in Ohio. This is hard work, and it requires dedication from our leaders in our state house, in our state board of ed, and our local boards of education, and in our schools and classrooms. So the threats are real. They're very real. So I just want to name these bills, but I'm going to do something I haven't been doing as I've been done these talks lately. I'm going to name the legislators who filed them, so you hear their names too. Representative Don Jones sponsored HB 322. Rep. Sarah Fowler Arthur and Rep. Diane Grandel, you'll hear her name again, co-sponsored 327. Mike Loychik and Jean Schmidt co-sponsored 616. Those are the three anti-honesty bills. Gary Click and Diane Grandel sponsor 454, which prevents gender-affirming care. And just this week, DJ Swearingen and Sarah Carruthers, this week, entered a new bill. It hasn't been assigned committee yet, 722. Parents' Bill of Rights. What is it? It's a hidden anti-LGBTQ bill. Again, how many of them can we have? Well, we have 3 anti-honesty bills. Now we're up to 2 anti-LGBTQ bills. So this requires us to be actively involved, to be informed, to vote, and to be ready for the lame duck session. I want to go to the State Board of Ed next. I think many of you already know our state board has 11 elected members, and 5 of whom are up for election this November cycle. Grab that handout. And 8 leaders appointed by the governor. The State Board of Ed meets once a month, and they've done some amazing work. We have a whole child framework in Ohio, and we have a powerful strategic plan that centers equity. We believe in social emotional learning and in teaching the whole child. We just passed a fabulous set of computer science standards, and we're having hard conversations about how kids read. In fact, conversations where some of us disagree with each other, right? However, on top of all that goodness, the State Board of Ed has members who do not believe in equity, and they're using their position and their power to hurt and harm people. Brendan Shea is one of those leaders. He submitted a resolution this week. In fact, it hasn't even been 10 days. And this resolution threatens, again, the safety of LGBT kids in our schools and their families and their friends. This is not only a threat to LGBTQ kids, and it's a real threat to them, but all of us who love them, or frankly, those of us who feel like, well, I don't really know any LGBTQ kids, or like, that's not my issue. We need to stand up because, and it pains me to say this, but I was just in Berlin this June, and I got to visit the Jewish Museum of History in Berlin and got to see how in 1933, all these little pieces of legislation were passed slowly but surely against Jewish people. You can't shop after 2. You have to bank here. Here's where Jewish teachers can teach. And I want me, a non-Jewish person, a non-queer person, I'm a documented person. I want to be the kind of human that stands up for all those other humans in the face of hate and harm. I don't want my neighbors, my friends, or even my enemies to feel this kind of hate coming toward them. See, I think God said that too. Or Jesus, or the Holy Spirit, one of them. Okay, I want us to protect every child who comes to school in Ohio. Paying attention to what happens at the State Board of Ed every month is tricky work because it's not well covered in the media. But Honesty for Ohio Ed is striving to change that. We're sending out press releases, action alerts, our own social media, and we have amazing coalition partners who help us do this work. I only have a minute left, so I want to talk about your local school boards as well. This is not a local school board election year. That happens on the odd years, right? But that doesn't mean you can't be in conversation with the folks who are elected to think about what the implication of each of these bills and resolutions looks like in your own community. In fact, the off years are some of the best times to have these conversations. So I want to encourage you to attend school board meetings, to show up when they're meeting formally, but to also take the chance to say, hey, I'd love to talk to you. Are you informed? What do you know? Can I buy you a coffee? Only if it's within the rules of your school board that you're allowed to actually purchase that coffee for your school board member, right? But be in relationship with folks who have power. I'm going to say that one more time. Be in relationship with folks who have power. And there's a lot of power within us. We're going to listen to young people who really are pushing us into places of power as well. P.S. That's how the world works. The young people shall lead us. Is that in the Bible? Okay. See, I'm really being faith-based today. It's really incredible of me. Pat myself on the head, fix my halo. So this is the work I want to encourage you to do. To know better and do better. To be informed. To stay steadfast in the face of the hate that is facing our neighbors, our communities, and us. Reach out with questions and then do something. Write a letter. Have a meeting. Testify locally or in Columbus. Reach out to others. Use your voice to be a force for change. Thank you so much.
So since the non-minister brought up scripture, I guess I can. It's just easier because Everybody else will need it down. The book of James says, faith without works is dead. So the values that you hold, the beliefs you have, if you don't put them into action, they're worthless. So, right now, if you're feeling motivated, or as you hear Mina or Ember or Mary speak, if you feel motivated, we have pens and paper right over here at the Honesty for Ohio table. There's also fact sheets, and then taped to all the tables is a little template. So you can kind of curb off that, cheat off that, to write a letter to the committee chairs. On the template are also the names of the 3 committee chairs, the names of their committees, and the specific bills that are in their committee. Hadn't caught 722 yet, but I doubt it's assigned, so we can deal with that fun later. But feel free, as the spirit moves, to get up and write, do something. If you're not registered to vote, look back there. It's a voter registration form. If you're online, you can go to the State Board of Elections website or the county website and get registered that way. So, with that, I will welcome up Mina Zilch. She is a proud mother and fighter for justice in Ohio.
Easier than jumping. All right. Hi, I am Minna, and I live just up the street in Geauga County, and I am also on the board of directors for Geauga Soji Support Network. We have the table back there with the colorful tree. And we are an organization here in Geauga County that supports the LGBTQ community, youth and adults, through support groups and through events and activities, as well as community education. So if you have any interest or think of anyone who might be interested, please see our table, and we have information about everything that we do. So I also happen to be a parent of 2, I think, amazing kids, but one happens to be transgender. And I have to say, my family and I stood in this exact spot a year ago, and I was pretty angry at that time. But today I am absolutely livid, for lack of a better term, because things have gotten worse, shockingly. I didn't even think it was possible, but it is. So, step back, step closer. Okay, sorry. I always feel like I'm screaming, so I don't want to get too close. Okay. Since a year ago, people are really talking about now and engaging with these anti-honesty bills in education. They're also still talking about and engaging with the legislation that would ban transgender kids from receiving medical care. In addition, a bill that bans transgender athletes from participating in sports has passed the House as an 11 o'clock at night amendment to an unrelated bill on June 1st, the first day of Pride Month. It is absolutely disgusting for our family. We have been fighting the state of Ohio for more than 2 years. And I have to say, I am completely and utterly exhausted. But I cannot stop. We, as a family, cannot stop. Because if we don't speak up, who's going to speak up? Someone has to speak up. And so we have made a very hard choice to go public and tell our story. And it has not been easy. And part of the reason my daughter wanted to be an athlete is because it was something that really helped her feel like she was who she really was. When she was able to play on the girls' softball team for the first time, it was the most amazing experience of her life. She waited 3 years. So many people don't know that the state of Ohio and many other states already have rules in place for transgender athletes. And we had to provide so much documentation. We had to provide blood test results. We had to provide medical records. We had to get letters from doctors in order for her to play. And athletes have to do that every single sport they want to play. It's not like, oh, you've been on hormones for a year now? Great, you can play. No, no, no. You want to play again, a new sport next month? Guess what? We need all the records all over again. And in Ohio, this has been in place since 2015, so 7 years. During that time, they have had 30 approvals for transgender males to play at the high school level. Now, approval just means a kid has been approved. It doesn't mean individual kids. For transgender females at the high school level, there have been 5 approvals. 2 were my child, 2 are another child we know down in Columbus, and 1 is a girl who was just approved this fall to play soccer. 3 transgender girls in high school have been approved in 7 years to play a sport. That's it. And yet the narrative is that these girls are taking over, these kids are taking over. The people are turning girls just so that they can get into a sport and get scholarships. My daughter will be the first to tell you, she's not going to get an athletic scholarship. She's improved tremendously, but it's not going to happen, and that's not why she's doing it, and that's not why these other kids are doing it. She's embarking now, she's in her senior year, and the thought of losing that senior year just breaks my heart. Because how can I tell her after this long, hard fight, and after 2 years of playing, that suddenly it's ripped out of her? In addition, she won't be able to go to college in this state if this bill legislation passes, because it would affect college athletes as well. So she's basically being kicked out of Ohio by her own government. All of this legislation, the athlete bill, the education bills, the medical bans, every single one of them sends the message to LGBTQIA Ohioans and those of color that they don't matter, that their lives are not important. We don't want you here. Go away. That's the message that these kids are receiving from their government. No one should be made to feel that way from their government. It's absolutely unconscionable. So my message for all the trans kids who just want their basic rights, and for all the LGBTQ kids who just want to feel normal and walk down the street holding hands with someone they have a crush on, for all the people whose skin is not as pathetically pale as mine, and for all the students who just want to learn the true history of our country so we are not condemned to repeat our mistakes. Every one of you is my hero. And I would bet you're also the heroes for most of the other adults here as well. Because you wake up every single day in a state that tells you you don't matter, and you look it in the eye and you say, we matter. We are here and we are not going away, and you must listen to us. My kid has spent her entire high school career basically fighting for her right to exist. So I understand the pain and the frustration that all these kids are going through. And it's not easy for the parents and the family members and the siblings who support them as well. So you know what? You're all my heroes as well, because I have a younger son who's experienced it in addition. So what I want to pledge to you all today is that we are not going to rest until you are valued as much as your straight and white peers. We're not going to stop until your rights are protected, and I will go to my grave not letting anyone silence your voices or erasing your lives, because you are that important to me and to everyone here and to so many other people that our family has met in this fight. So, how are we going to do that? First of all, a lot of the things Lisa already said. We're going to tell your stories. We're going to be brave, and we're going to stand up, and we're going to say, hey, these people are here, and they deserve rights, and they deserve to be listened to. That's one of the first steps. We're also going to write those letters. We're going to make the phone calls. We're going to write the emails. And we're going to stand up and we're going to talk to our neighbors and friends. When we see someone or hear somebody who's like, oh, yeah, I don't know what I think about that, you can have a nice, polite conversation. It doesn't have to be mean. You know, there's many people we've talked to who started out like really not happy with us. And by the end of it, when they heard our story, they said, yeah, I get it. Thanks for sharing. And so that's one of the most important things we can do. One of the other most important things we can do is something that I have been told my whole life is one of the most important things people do since when they turn 18. And I have to say, last week, my family had the extreme honor of attending the Equality Ohio's Allies and Advocates event down in Cincinnati. And one of the people there, one of the honored guests, was Dennis Shepard. For those of you who don't know, he's the father of Matthew Shepard, who was brutally murdered in Laramie, Wyoming, over 20 years ago for being gay. So one of the questions that Dennis was asked was, what can we all do? And among other things, he said, for God's sake, vote. If you are not voting, you are letting the other side win. If you are not voting, you're telling them that these kids do not matter. If you're not voting, you are simply giving up. Because I have to say, one of the things that I have to do regularly is look at the opposition, the groups that are, it's basically national groups that are really proposing all this legislation in states around the country that they think they can get it passed in. So I keep tabs, kind of, because they've come after us in Geauga County. I keep tabs on them. And I look, and I'm telling you, they are organized, and they are voting religiously, and they are voting in droves. And when the groups tell them who to vote for, they go out and do it. So what I'm asking you is do your research, do your homework, look up the candidates, look up the races. If you're not old enough to vote, your homework is to find someone who is and ask them if they're voted. Ask them if they're registered. We have voter registrations. I, somewhere in my car, have absentee ballot forms. Find us. We can help you. You can take it home. Give it to your college-age kids. If you have kids in college, make sure that they are registered for an absentee ballot. Because we have to vote like lives depend on it. Because I'm telling you what, this election, they do. And I also talk to a lot of people, or particularly young people, who say, oh, voting doesn't mean much. It doesn't matter. Well, you know what? It does. And an example happened just the last 2 weeks. We have a local school board member up in Chardon who's been causing a whole lot of trouble lately. Saying a lot of bad stuff about LGBTQ kids and a whole bunch of other things that I'm not going to get into. You know what? He won his election by 24 votes. That is it. 24 votes made all the difference in the world for these kids up in Chardon who have now had to organize protests and had to be subjected to this man. 24 votes. So do not tell me that your vote doesn't matter. Thank you.
Okay, and now we're going to hear from two students from the area. First up is Ember.
Hi, I'm Ember. I am a senior at a public high school. I am also a trans athlete. I play softball. I have been for the past 3 years. When I was little, I played co-ed baseball, and I loved it. The sport was amazing. I could distract from life, just relax, and I still have friends today from that team. Almost 11 years ago. And that's incredible. Like, the entire point of sports at that age is to make connections and make friends and community. When I moved here and it was no longer co-ed, I didn't fit in. I didn't feel safe. I didn't know what was wrong. I just knew something was wrong. I left in 5th grade because it didn't feel me. And it was hard because I loved the sport. I'd wanted to play throughout middle school. I think even in 6th grade, I started wanting to play again. But this time I wanted to play softball because I was starting to figure out who I was and started to figure out what was wrong with the baseball team. Turns out there was nothing wrong. I was just not a boy. Um, I wasn't able to play until my sophomore year of high school. Because of the current OHSAA program in place, and when I finally was able to play, about a month later, the bill was introduced in the House, targeting trans athletes, and it was like, I just got here, and now this happens. We reached out to Equality Ohio, and we got involved, and I haven't stopped since. It thankfully didn't pass my sophomore year, but it just passed the House on a amendment to Bill 151 last June 1st, at 11 p.m. at night. And I had actually just been coming back from Columbus, Ohio, in which I was meeting with some of the House members that had pushed this bill through, and who had told me, don't leave Ohio. We're not all bad. There are some of us that are here to support you. That same night, yeah, it's raining. That same night, she pushed for that bill, and she made a speech about it. Being on softball is incredible for me, and it's terrifying to think that that might be taken away. I have friends on the softball team, friends I never would have made otherwise. Friends who treat me just like everyone else. My coach treats me just like everyone else on the team. And I've made a community that I feel safe with, and that's incredible, especially for a trans girl in this area. It's hard to find friends, and it's even harder to find cis friends that don't necessarily know what you're going through, but don't care. They just treat you like everyone else. Before I was on the softball team, I had very bad anxiety and depression, something that is already common in queer youth. And after being on the team, I still have anxiety and depression, but it's better. I can deal with it now. I'm not afraid to go to school because I know I have people I can talk to, and I know I have people who will support me. And it's incredible to have such a change in my life. I learned ASL because I didn't want to talk, because I didn't like my voice. And now here I am, purposely talking, purposely sharing my voice and my experience, because this matters. This matters not just to me, because to be fair, I only have 1 year left in high school. And as much as I'd love to be able to play my senior year, it's only going to affect me 1 more year, because I'm leaving Ohio after that. But there are younger trans girls who want to be able to play. And who are we to say that they don't deserve that community that I have? The safety and the connections that sports provide. In high school and middle school, sports are not about winning. Don't get me wrong, it's great, it feels amazing. But that's not why I play. I am a mediocre athlete, and I'm there because it gives me an escape from life. It lets me relax. I don't care if I win. Truly. I care about the community and the sport. Um, since 2015, there have only been 3 high school athletes. 3. That's trans female athletes, to be specific. That's so small. How, like, again, we are not pushing to be major athletic competitors. We are not getting scholarships. When I go to college, I plan on playing at Division III or club level. I'm just doing it for the fun, for the community. Along with these other bills, in particular with the recent proposal from the school board to prevent trans people from using the bathrooms that they choose, have teachers out trans students to their parents if they happen to use a nickname or different pronouns. That's insane. The majority, 30% of 30% of homeless youth are queer, and the majority of them are on the streets because they were kicked out by their family. These kind of bills would put LGBTQ youth in danger, pushing more youth onto the streets and out of their homes. It's what these bills are telling kids like me and my friends are that we are unimportant. We aren't real people. We are only a little bit human. And that's just not true. We are all human. We are all people. We are all in this together. And two people that went before me hit the voting right on the head, so I'll leave you off with just please vote. Vote for me and vote for everyone else that isn't like you. Thank you.
So I think Minna said something about heroes. Ember's one of my heroes. So thank you for talking. And now we have Mary up, who Ember recruited to come speak with us. She's also a local student.
Hi, my name is Mary Catherine, and before I start, I want to tell you about a volunteer opportunity. I volunteer with the Ohio Democrats Voter Protection Agency, and there's currently a voter protection hotline that you can currently call and ask questions about voting and absentee ballots, and you can call on behalf of yourself or someone else that you care about. And so I just want to give you guys the phone number if you want to write it down, because it's not that easy to find, but the phone number is 1-844-OHI-VOTE. Again, 1-844-OHI-VOTE. And that's a really important number to call in case you need help with any voting-related questions. Good morning. My name is Mary Catherine Kane, and I'm a senior at Sugar Falls High School. I'm here today to discuss the harms surrounding Ohio House Bills 322, 327, and 616. Not too long ago, Ohio laws prohibited people of color from voting, running for office, serving on juries, and attending public schools, and many of these laws were in place for almost half a century. Under House Bill 322, this history is forbidden from being taught as systemic racism. Instead, it must be referred to as deviations from, betrayals of, or failures to live up to the founding principles of the United States of America. Additionally, if a teacher decides to discuss current events or widely debated and currently controversial issues of public policy or social affairs, they must do so from diverse and contending perspectives. However, House Bill 322 does not offer any definitions or examples of these widely debated controversial issues. This will leave teachers guessing topics This will leave teachers guessing which topics are acceptable and which are not. The end result will be teachers leaving numerous topics out of the curriculum. The teachers who do decide to navigate around these restrictions will now have to present both and all sides of events such as the Holocaust, Jim Crow laws, and other systemic failures. The saying, "there are two sides to every story," is common, especially when you know that there has been wrongdoing. Now, I want you to think to yourself, do children really need to learn that there are two sides to the Holocaust, an event where over 6 million people were murdered because of their beliefs? Do children really need to learn that there are two sides to slavery, an event where people were stolen from their homeland, tortured, and forced to work against their will? Do we want our state's youth debating the pros and cons of these events, or do we want them to recognize that it was wrong so that history doesn't repeat itself? House Bill 327 adapts most of House Bill 322's thinking while also applying it to state colleges and universities, local governments, and all state agencies and departments. So, if you wanted to teach K through 12 students, or college students, or state employees, or police officers, or elected officials, or anyone else targeted by this bill, that sometimes they unconsciously act in harmful ways against others because they're biased by their own race, gender, sex, religion, or anything else, you're out of luck, as House Bill 327 makes these instructions illegal. Additionally, teaching that some people benefit from the racism and sexism that is prevalent in this country would be against the law. In fact, if a teacher or instructor voices these concepts in a public school or college classroom, they can be sued and bankrupt. Their school will lose 25 to 100% of its state funding, and their teaching license would be affected. Supporters of House Bill 327 care so much about eliminating the teachings of inherent bias and systemic racism that they are more than happy to leave teachers who are already underpaid, suffering the burden of lawsuits and legal fees. And if you thought it couldn't possibly get any worse, you clearly haven't heard of House Bill 616. This harmful piece of legislation combines pieces of House Bill 327 with an even more extreme version of Florida's Don't Say Gay bill. House Bill 616 prohibits discussion of sexual orientation and gender identity at all grade levels. Additionally, it will ban discussions concerning diversity, equity, and inclusion, and any other concept that the State Board of Education defines as divisive. Right-wing Republican extremists in our state are actively trying to erase an honest account of United States history from our curriculum, but we will not let them win. Support for the LGBTQ+ community is at an all-time high in Ohio, as 79% of residents believe in non-discrimination protections. House Bill 616 does not represent the thinking of most Ohioans. This legislation is wrong and a threat to the future of our state. As a resident of the state of Ohio, you have so much power. You have the ability to protect the rights of people of color and the LGBTQ+ community. You have the power to protect our students, our teachers, and our school. As of right now, it is up to each and every single one of you to protect the future of our state, and the only way this can be done is through having a voice. Whether it's through contacting your representatives, or signing a petition, or attending a protest, all of you have the power to make a difference, not only in our state, but in our country. House Bills 322, 327, and 616 were introduced by right-wing Republican extremists to take away rights that we currently have in our schools. The party of small government and freedom is actively trying to revoke your liberties. Each piece of legislation mentioned today is an assault on public education guaranteed to impact you or someone you know. It is now more important than ever not to lose sight of what is worth fighting for. I encourage you to share your opinions with others. I encourage you to vote, and I encourage you to save our state. Thank you.
So I know how I'm supposed to follow that up, but excellent job. Thank you for sharing, ladies. It was powerful testimony. It was powerful work. And now the work is ours. They are doing their part. Now we need to do ours. We need to share their stories. This is on YouTube. You can feel free to tell people to watch it there so they can hear their stories. You don't have to play telephone. But people need to hear about how it impacts individuals. They need to hear about what the students that are going to be affected by this most think. They need to see LGBTQ people as people and not just somebody to talk about on Fox News. Oops, I said it. We need to remember that love will win the day. We need to remember that those on the side of love will win the day. There's this interesting quirk of history where those who always promote hatred and putting other people down lose. They might win in the short term, they might win for a few decades, but eventually they always lose, and love always wins. In this country, slavery fell. In this country, Jim Crow fell. Yes, it keeps trying to rear its ugly head again and again, and we're going to be here to bat it down again and again. So we have to stay solid in our belief that love will win. We have to believe that the long arc of history bends towards justice. And we might not be here to see that final bend when justice rains down and flows, but we will do our part to reach up and bend it just a little bit more. So please, if you haven't already, go vote, go write letters. The sun is shining, so we have plenty of time now to pick up some pen and paper over here. There's also, like I said, the fact sheets. We have templates taped down if you need that. And then we have our lovely boxed together letters under the Honesty for Ohio table, a lovely Corinthian column, because that fits with government, right? It's not just the box I found. So please, please take the fire from here, put it in your heart, and carry it forward so we may have change in Ohio and we may stop the hate. Thank you for coming. Thank you for the work you are doing and will do. Go forward in peace, go forward in justice, and go forward knowing love will win. Amen. If you don't have anything to do tomorrow morning, we will be assembling little kits for the dogs of the Geauga County Dog Warden tomorrow in worship. So if you're sitting around and it's 10:45 and you got nothing to do, come on down.